Hello everyone, welcome to the Adobe Fonts Show episode 34. You might have noticed that there's something missing right over here to my left. Yes, Ari is on vacation, so we wish Ari a wonderful vacation. Hopefully she's having a great time and having some good time off. She will be back soon, but in the meantime, we have a great guest and topic for you today, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I see we already have some people joining us in the chat. Sean, Rick, awesome. Paula, good to have you. Yes, Sean, I'm allowed to run solo, although we try to make this we try to not make this a regular thing. But in all fairness, I will not be solo for that long, so you won't have to worry. For those of you new to the stream, I'm Ben. My name is Ben. I work on the Adobe Fonts team as a content producer. I started in support, answering a bunch of questions. And then now I make things like this stream and content. And really, I just try to help people get the most out of using fonts with Creative Cloud. And if you're new to Adobe Fonts is a library of 20,000 fonts that you can use both commercially and personally with your Creative Cloud subscription. That's a lot of fonts. If you need a font, chances are there's something that will fit your project in Adobe Fonts. And we try to make it really easy to find that with features like our recommendations page and other things, which I'll show you in a little bit. And if you're new to the Adobe Fonts Show, we talk about fonts, all things fonts and type. We have workshops with design professionals. And yeah, if that's your sort of thing, definitely follow Creative Cloud and Adobe Live on YouTube, and then also follow us on Behance. We put all of our past episodes on Behance, behance.net/Adobe Fonts. And there's a lot of evergreen stuff in there because a lot of these topics are pretty much good all year round. So definitely worth checking that out. And yes, let's see what we have going on in the chat. Yes, awesome. Well, let us know where you're from. Again, I'm from Brooklyn, so I see we have Rick from Toronto. Let us know where you're from. And yeah, we'll get started real quick. I'm going to show you a little bit about Adobe Fonts. We have something new on the Adobe Fonts site that we launched recently that, yeah, I just wanted to show you. So we have on the homepage now, we have a Trending Now section and a New Releases section. Both great places to find fresh stuff on Adobe Fonts. And a lot of these font specimens here are very inspirational and give you an idea of what the font is going to look like. And it's pretty easy to dive right in. And something really cool we have is this featured in Adobe Express templates, which all of the fonts that you see in these templates are available on Adobe Fonts. And you can actually just open the template right from here and open it right in. Oh, what's happening? There we go. It signed me right in. Thank you. And so this is the templates page. If you go to view more, and you can actually, again, just click this and it will open it right up in Adobe Express. And I'm going to show you that really quick. We'll just let that load. But this is a really fun way to just start working with fonts right away. Oh, I see Misty is from LA. Hello, Misty. I grew up in LA, so thank you for joining. Good to have some Los Angeles representation here. Is it asking me to log in? What is happening? I'm going to give it a second. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. So that template should load with all of the fonts loaded. And if it's given me a little bit of guff, I'll just switch back and we don't have to look at that right now. But I'm going to try this one more time and we'll see what happens. This was working for me literally right before the stream. So that's how you go. That's how it goes when it's live. You know what I mean? Paula, no, I don't have a Brooklyn accent. It's very California. I tried to lose some of the, I grew up in the Valley, so I've tried to lose as much of the like, yo, as I could. So hopefully that's not coming through too strong. All right, we're going to skip that. Anyways, trust me when I say you can open these in Adobe Express and work with the fonts right from there. So awesome. Paula's in Nebraska. Welcome. Good to have you. Yeah, so let's dive right into today's topic. Yeah, we're going to be talking about creative trends in 2022 with Shea Molloy, and I'm going to let Shea kind of describe those in a lot more detail. But before we bring Shea on, so Shea is a design content development strategist and on the Adobe Stock team who also collaborates on research and analysis with the Parsons Data Visualization programs. So I'm going to let her describe exactly what that means, but just trust me that she has a lot of really good information about what's happening in digital art and in culture and really does deep thinking about the topics that we're going to be talking about today. So if you have any questions about that stuff, do definitely ask. And please help me give a warm welcome to Shea. Shea, welcome to the Adobe Fonts show.
Hi, Ben.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. Welcome.
Yeah, so as Ben was saying, my job on Adobe Stock is mostly with design content and digital art. I do a lot of research for vectors, illustrations, and like Creative Cloud design elements.
Awesome. Yeah. So, what is your, real quick, just what does your kind of day to day look like?
Well, it's a lot of curation. It's a lot of technical spec writing for art on Adobe Stock, and it's a lot of research for like what customers are looking for, what's doing well, what kind of themes and styles are popular or needed, and looking just at what kind of content people need for different use cases.
Awesome. That's very similar to Ari is our library manager. And so very similar to what kind of fonts do we need? What's missing from the library? What are people talking about? What's popular right now? Very similar stuff with that. And yeah, we want to keep these libraries, fresh and useful and all that good stuff. So awesome. We have a poll for you today. The poll's pretty straightforward. How familiar are you with Adobe Stock? Have we met? Hung out a few times, besties. And I guess if you're like really into it, you could probably add four as like married, or like, long-term partner, married, life partner. But we'll go with these three. Let us know in the chat. You can just pick a number and let us know. There's no wrong answers. So just let us know where you're at. And if you have any questions about stock, this is the stream to ask them. So feel free to dive into that. I think we have Simon has joined us. Bliss has joined us. Michelle, welcome. Thank you for having us. Wilson, I see you're also here as well. Excellent. Cody's in Nashville. Rock and roll. Awesome. Well, let's dive right in, Shea. I think you're ready to share your screen.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're talking about trends today, creative trends at Adobe Stock. We do a ton of research every year. We kick it off at the beginning of the new year externally, and we just look at a ton of creative sources, market research, insights from Creative Cloud and Behance, and we cover visual trends, design trends, and motion trends. So obviously, what we're talking about today are the design trends, but it's mostly to help artists know what sort of work they can make with like a more inspirational theme. But we also share it with like customers, and it's like what we want to talk about for the year, things we think are interesting and cool, and just overall patterns in the industry.
And it kind of gives artists a way in, right? It like gives them a doorway into a particular style or vibe or that kind of thing. They have like several assets they can work with that are like, gonna get them there.
Yeah, and because we put so much stuff out there, we do deep dive blogs, we put out collections, we did this great like the font packs are awesome this year.
Yeah.
It really gives like any kind of work you're making. It could be like photography, you could be a layout designer or a UI designer. It gives you like many different ways to check out these themes and to think like creatively without feeling like you have to just recreate stuff that already exists.
Awesome. Good stuff. Oh, and what's a motion trend? Just out of curiosity. I'd never heard that before.
Oh, the motion. Yeah, we've got the motion trends are really cool. Copying captions was a big one this year. We're
Ooh.
seeing a lot of people have to find different software, different tools to add captions to their work. I think this trend is driven a lot by people who are making content that goes on TikTok now, where that's really popular.
Very type related and not something you always think of as type, but captions are type. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and they're one of like the most successful accessibility design features of all time. I like because people don't who can hear or who don't need closed captions still use them. It's really top tier
Awesome.
experience design.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so the trends we want to talk about today are two of my favorites. This new naturalism here and these otherworldly visions trends. I think are going to be really fun.
Yeah.
They're both kind of futuristic, but they've got a lot of visual cues that make them really different. We picked them because they're prominent in like branding and stuff, but they're also really important for UI design, editorial design, all these like different mediums that incorporate really, really important fonts.
Nice.
So this one, new naturalism, is how we're describing visual aesthetics that are like clean and modern and organic and definitely more minimalist and sort of progressive.
Yeah.
And we've got a ton of examples on this landing page that you can go check out. Like we have a whole collection from Adobe Stock here for you as well. These are all assets that are like currently in our collection on Adobe Stock. Um, some of them are photographs, some of them are illustrations.
Yeah.
We've got templates.
No, you notice that there's lots of things happening here. There's certain photos that feel like this trend. There's colors that feel like this trend. There's fonts that feel like this trend, even illustrations that feel like it. And then there's overlap between them, right? Like you might see a certain color used for a font or in an image or in an illustration that, still kind of embodies that, but it's like kind of across the board. You can kind of feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's why also on that landing page, there are these like mood boards that we build on Behance. And the Behance mood boards do a really good job of tying work together from like all different fields. And
Unsung hero
we
feature of Behance, for sure.
I
Mood
love
boards.
it. I live off mood boards.
Yeah.
It just does such a good job of showing you like of showing rather than telling um, a vibe or like an idea rather than just like these projects are popular. It's like no, this is a
It's capturing,
overarching
yes,
trend.
it's capturing like, I kind of feel like it's the difference between like you listen to a whole song and you get what the song's about, or you listen to one lyric and you're like, good lyric, but I don't know what the song is about until I listen to the whole thing. That's kind of what a mood board feels like to me in terms of a vibe. It's like if I saw one of these, I wouldn't know what the vibe was, but then you see them together and it's like, I get it. I know what I'm going for.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you can see everything in context with each other, it's a lot easier to pick up. Like even as I'm scrolling, you can see the patterns and like colors.
Mm-hmm.
Also because I like grouping things by color when I sort them. But you can see like what what signals are connected, and that's just a terms from like futures research. But
And something I'm noticing here that is I wouldn't expect from new naturalism in the title, or just even those things, like a lot of very simple geometric shapes, a lot of circles and
yeah,
like very simple, keep showing up again and
yeah,
again and used in creative ways. But they're like a lot of the illustration is very simple.
yeah, this is definitely the like minimalist end of this like future forward trend that
Yeah,
we're seeing. Like I think in like post pandemic and like thinking about what the world is going to look like, people tend to go one of two ways. They either go like very minimal with like simple shapes and simple lines to sort of clear their head, or they go like maximal, like very expressive.
yeah.
And those are kind of the two ends that we're going for
They
today.
either need a little bit of silence or they have a lot to say, and both are valid. They both matter. But yeah, it's just
Both
whatever
are
you're
super
feeling.
valid and both have great fonts.
Yes.
Both like truly like this example here I really like, Nature is My Homeland, which
Hmm.
does a really good job of showing how like informational and like academic fonts can be not stuffy.
Yeah. Like that cover feels very inviting and organic and warm, right? It feels very like,
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
got that like natural texture
Hmm.
and like the colors are really modern, but they still feel like like harkening back to caring about plants and the earth and stuff.
Yeah. Kyle says in the
Yeah.
chat, loving this trend. Agreed.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me and my plant babies here. This is yeah, this example is great also because it shows how like how much space there is in this trend. Like there's so much space around everything.
White space is a huge thing to pay attention to.
And people were really playing with it with this trend. Like
Yeah.
they wanted you to feel like you could breathe.
Yeah,
This
even
is also
that
this one's a
business
good
card,
example.
right, is like, or that simple organic was all white space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's like it's still making like a really powerful statement
Yep.
of like white space is important. It gives you room to think. And then these natural textures here are part of the naturalism. Like this is the new, this is the
Yeah.
naturalism. Yeah, and the shapes that you're talking about, this is an example I love to talk about in circular. It's from a collaboration from a bunch of studios in Spain, and it's a branding system
Wow.
with these sort of like simple shapes that they've also animated, and like it feels very like scientific, but also really modern and progressive. And they do a really good job of like adding form
Yeah.
as like the statement.
And like they even in the posters they capture some of that movement
Yeah,
by showing the shapes changing over time.
right. And so that exact concept reminds me a lot of like the 60s, 70s post minimalist
Hmm.
art trend, which was all about like playing with process and letting people be really expressive with form and showing like a creative idea in its total execution. And it's also like post minimalism is sort of having a moment now in the fine art world. It looks a lot like this stuff,
Oh,
like
okay.
these shapes, playing with like materials and
And like
experimenting with like,
imperfectness in a really kind of beautiful
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I feel like we're seeing that a lot in like interior design and fashion, and that trickles into like all kinds of content. This brief is really fun if you guys want to check this out.
Yeah, definitely check this out. Oliver says hi, welcome Oliver. And Cody says it feels like it has elements of retrofuturism mixed in with nature. Is that a good
Yes,
way to describe it? Yeah, I thought so.
totally. And you should check out the blog post on that landing page that I showed earlier. This, not that one. This landing page. There's um a blog post on here that goes exactly into like the futurism side of it and how it's like rooted in wanting a utopia. It's
Nice.
I think it's also linked in here.
Oh, cool. Good.
And then we also, if you, oh yeah, like this image here where it's like this feels like the minimalist side of retrofuturism to me.
Mm-hmm.
There is also retrofuturism in the other trend we're going to talk about,
Yep.
that it has more of that like colorful camp vibe. But this to me feels like so many of my favorite sci-fi TV shows that are like
Yeah.
set in space or on new planets and things like that.
And what is the page that we're looking at right now? Is this
Oh,
the
these are the color palettes.
yeah,
These we put together for each trend,
awesome.
and we'll be sharing these for sure. It's in the asset library that we'll be sharing with you, alongside these like font packs that we were talking about,
Yeah, I just feel like there's
which
so much useful, like just even just reading through this, there's so much useful stuff of just even if you don't end up doing this trend, giving you ideas about how you could capture, let's say, this side of this trend. Or maybe you want to use the color palette because that's what's inspiring you, or maybe you want to use some of the shapes. But like if you read through this, you're going to get so many ideas for what to do and try.
yeah, and I think this kind of brief that we release for each trend is really good if you have a client that needs like specific creative direction. Like most artists,
Mm.
most designers will have like their own style that a client wants to incorporate, but then you sort of have to think about, okay, if you're doing something for like a school or like a wellness brand or like zero waste brand or
Yeah.
mushroom leather company, like if you're doing something for specific clients, this might be an aesthetic they would want to capture,
This could certainly
and
start a
how can you incorporate
conversation.
it into yours?
Yeah.
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 And so for stock, at least, this is mostly to help people experiment in a way that can be successful commercially.
Yeah.
But I think if you're doing like client work, it's also really helpful for thinking about what you're helping your client massage, like what they're actually looking for.
Even using this too as a template for what you send to your client and then you fill this in with the stuff that you think is appropriate. So it could be this trend, but it could be, you could kind of cobble together a few different things, but you can just go over these things. Here's the color palettes I'm thinking about. Here's the fonts that I'm looking at. Here's the images that are inspiring me. It's kind of like a mood board on steroids a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with like different like tips and tricks and like tools. Like we outline like you could try playing with like stone and wood, and
Yeah.
the font packs I think are a great way to get started because they sync so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can check these out. You can see here. I mean, my favorite of these are like the Arboreta book. Mostly, I like the name a lot, but it's also like a really good informational font.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's rounded,
clean.
it's
It's not our
friendly, but it's
yeah.
readable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to use fonts like that all the time for different like projects, and I'm always looking for a fun one, and I feel like this is like not boring.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to use Futura for everything. Let's activate these and I can show you. Oh, we've got more freebies. We've got a library. So I'm going to activate those fonts and I can show you all this free stuff we have for you.
So these are the library assets
Yep.
for New Naturalism, and all of the things in here are in the free library
Yep.
from Adobe Stock.
Yep. So we've added those color palettes that we showed, and we've added the free templates for Illustrator. So I'm going to open those up. Let's see.
Oh, cool.
This is a free one for New Naturalism for Illustrator. And what we do is we use those creative briefs and we commission work from artists to sort of like lean into those trends and give people someplace to start with.
So Cody
And
just
so
pasted in the chat the library assets. That's what we're looking at right now. So if you want to download these and mess around and play around with them, that's the link, and that link was created for this stream. So you're not going to find, that's a special link right there. Some good stuff in
that
there.
is just for y'all.
Yeah, just for y'all.
Yeah. This is the floral logo set for AI, and it's a template, so it'll open up as like a new file. But yeah, we've got so much stuff for you in here, so you can like get started playing with placeholders or patterns. We've got some motion assets in there too if you're working on social media stuff. I've added some vertical videos. But if you wanted to use those fonts that we just activated, it's really easy to update this template to just like start playing with it. So I could use like that book that I like. I can update that. Let's see. And I can play with the color really easily. Let's see. I like this. I like this one. This really warm one. I love the palettes on Adobe Color
Oh yeah.
because you can
Makes it
literally just
so
like,
easy.
yeah, you can just start playing and see what you like. It's like, oh, look at that. Now I have like a totally different vibe.
Yeah, once you change the fonts and the colors, this looks like a totally new thing.
Yeah. And it like, you could change the letter to be a one that works for you. You can just start playing around with like, okay, so this is more of like a warm new naturalism. This is something you might want to do for like a makeup concept, or you could do a lot of stuff with this.
Ooh, with that middle P, try changing that to that gimlet font and see what that looks like.
Do you like that gimlet font?
Yeah.
Let's do, yeah.
That's it.
Make it a little smaller.
Yes. I like it. The other one I think looked a little bit more elegant, which matched with the illustrations around, but I still kind of like this. So
Yeah, I mean the templates that we get made, these are also available in the command and dialog box. You can like find a bunch of free stuff to play with in here.
awesome.
But these are made by like really, really talented designers, and
Right.
we're working with like individual artists and studios just like constantly to make new stuff. And some of it's free, some of it's not, but check out if you're looking for like a really good place to start, templates are great.
Yes, Sean said thanks for sharing, and Bliss said these are beautiful assets.
Oh, thanks. I didn't make them, but we do. But we are very proud of our artists on Adobe Stock.
You are
You can also
you're definitely
see,
part of the pipeline that makes this happen. So that's for sure.
yeah, actually, so the design elements team, I'm mostly focusing on vectors and illustrations now, but the design elements team, so like me and the people who work on online templates and the people who work on these Creative Cloud templates, we're all like talking about these trends constantly. Like we'll send each other cool things we're seeing on social media, and we'll send each other different like shows or things that we see embodying trends. It's very fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we have another library for you here, but do you want to switch gears and start talking about the other end of this future forward design research?
Yes, let's do that. Let's dive into that. We're going to
Okay.
go to Otherworldly Visions.
Yeah,
Excellent.
this one's really fun. This is a great trend if you're into like sci-fi, fantasy, cyberpunk stuff. And like I said, it's definitely more on the like maximalist side. So, we had the minimal flowers with the lots of space and the calming colors, and now we're going for like optical illusions and like high contrast and vaporwave Afrofuturist solar punk stuff. It's really fun.
Yeah. And
And so
totally
sorry.
futuristic and totally a different direction. I mean, totally like a way to embrace that. That's, much more vibrant and in your face. But it's awesome.
Yeah, this one feels more fantasy oriented to me.
Mm,
Like the new naturalism trend feels very like near to future. Like we could actually see that in our lifetimes. We're seeing a lot of plant-based things as is,
right.
but this feels like much more far off future,
Yeah.
but it also does lean into that retrofuturism aesthetic. It's really fun. It's sort of an evolution of a trend we explored last year called modern gothic, which was, like big clunky chains and like Billie Eilish,
Yeah.
like, it was just like, but it had elements of this. And the way that we see trends evolve is we'll start to see signals within an aesthetic, and then they sometimes expand into being these whole developed ideas.
Yeah.
So we've got another mood board here. Let's see. This one,
Oh, yeah.
so much stuff going on here. It's a lot more color. It's a
Yes.
lot more. It's also got a lot of plants, which I really like.
But I like
But
too,
it's
like
like,
when I heard about it originally, I thought, oh, it's going to be the neon stuff. But there's also really fun colors that are more pastel-y as well. It's not just the
right.
super vibrant, and I love seeing both.
Well, and that's definitely a big motivation for why we do this sort of research is because we we are seeing a lot of like cyberpunk and neon signs, and a lot of that has to do with what's going on TV
Mm,
or in music, but there's ways to keep pushing that forward in fresh and like interesting directions that doesn't just feel like, okay, we're seeing Blade Runner again.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Blade Runner, but it's changing. It's changed a bit. You're right, there is a lot of pastels because this is like way more ethereal.
Yeah.
I honestly think of like the Little Nas X album a lot when I'm looking at stuff from this trend where he's like in space, but then he's also in hell, and then there's just a ton of overlap in the like worlds we're exploring.
Yeah, like you could see something in this trend that is both in space or is like a fairyland or is like either one of those could fit. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and here's a good retrofuturism example. I love this example. It's from the Edge Cloud Platform ad campaign from HP. And when we're doing the Behance mood boards, we try to find like really prominent, really big campaigns or like really popular cutting edge stuff.
I love this top animation. It looks like a animated postcard. I mean, that's probably what it's
Yeah,
main trying to do. But what a great asset, to just share around. Like I just want to watch
yeah,
it.
yeah. They did such a great job with this, and it also feels really progressive because the kind of worlds that they're imagining in these aesthetics are like also still very optimistic. Like
Yeah.
we're trying to we're trying to picture the future we want here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
And
think
I,
some
I feel like
on the darker side, sometimes like we also want to help you picture the world we fear, but both can be
totally,
both can be beautiful in their own way.
totally. And I think at least with with futurism and with sci-fi stuff, a lot of times people are trying to envision like a
The
world that they want to
dystopia.
see,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the world that they don't want to
Yeah.
see. This one, yeah, I love like this image. It's just so pretty, and it does a really good job of feeling also kind of opulent. Like that's another difference between new naturalism and otherworldly visions to me, is that new naturalism is very minimalist versus like otherworldly visions somehow feels like opulent and luxurious in a totally different way.
Yeah.
The fonts in this trend are also really wild. It gets really fun because like we're seeing a lot of those like digital fonts like monotype and stuff. But we're also seeing people get really strange with it and really experimental with it.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, like this one.
I'm digging so much in this mood board.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that people play with type in this is like so dramatic and so fun.
Also, you can follow these mood boards, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So if you want to, go to the trend page that Cody linked to, and then go to the mood board from there, and you can follow it and peruse it at your leisure whenever you feel like it. So
Yeah, and we'll be working on next year's trends soon too,
nice.
but we won't be publishing those for a while. So if you follow Adobe Stock, you can see when we publish new ones.
I like the mood board too because there's enough variety in here again that if like I don't know, it just feels like you're gonna find something that you can you can kind of get your hooks into that's exciting to you, and kind of build from there. I mean, that's usually when I'm starting a project. The hardest part is that I need that initial something to build on. You know?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
And like Behance is really good for having all different kinds of work. And then like the if you're working in like commercial stuff, we also have collections of what other people are making in the market now, like in at stock.
Mm-hmm.
You can see stuff in there as well. Oh no. But that is there's a bunch of stuff in here that you can play with. And there's also another brief, which is really fun. And this has like a lot more of the like ideas. Like if you want something to read to get some inspiration, this is a good way to get sort of a deep dive.
Nice.
And some new tools. There's a bunch of tutorials in here as well of like things across Adobe that could help you explore this style. And of course, we got more palettes because that's the most fun part of this project.
Yes.
And we've got more fonts.
So many good fonts.
Oh my god. And you can pair them in a really fun way. Like the thing that I love about this font pack is that you can either use the fonts in here to explore like really clean pairings and really like
Yep.
dramatic statement fonts. There's some really good um, recommendations for font pairing. So if you want to go for something on the more like luxurious dramatic statement side, this operetta is going to be really good for that.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking for like what works with that, the font pairings I find can be a really fun way to explore that.
Oh yeah.
Or you can like
It just gives you a
go
jumping
ahead.
off point and something to start with, and maybe you see something you
Yeah,
really like.
and I think that seeing the fonts in this trend in context and like in context of all of the other stuff that we're producing helps you picture what it is you want to make in this trend and like how you might want to explore these ideas. So like if you wanted to do something fun like pair these crazy like these
Yeah, that's font pairing
very
happening
dramatic.
within the word itself, right? It's not even two words with
Right.
different font. It's different font almost per letter, but it works.
Right. And if you
In this case, it
and
works.
so and there's ways you can do that in your own work. It doesn't have to be like obviously things on Behance are very personal projects and they're like for very specific things, but these font packs let you like sort of play with that idea in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
And so there is another asset library that we will put in the chat. It's got
Bruce
all the palettes.
Bruce
Yeah.
asked, did you share how these trends come about at the beginning? And I think we can wait until like we get a little closer to the end and maybe we can kind of talk through how these trends come about. in a little
Yeah,
more
I'd be
detail.
happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. Um, I'll show you guys another. So yeah, so what I was saying about if you wanted to like play with this on your own, like that cool, you see something cool in like the Behance mood board, and you're like, okay, that I love how that looks, but it doesn't really work just like that for this project that I'm working on. But you can take those fonts and you could just start playing with like that idea. So you could take something like this and you could change it to, oh, I like the BD, yeah, that digital one.
Yeah.
I think this is a really fun way to like take a really creative idea and make it something that works for either your everyday job or something that has like a very specific use case.
And just, practicing in general is so important of like just getting familiar with what you like, your own taste, what your clients like, experimenting. I mean, again, for me, like I'll usually come up with 3 or 4 ideas that I don't like before I hit on something I really do like. And part of that is just finding a little something to sink my teeth into. I want to play with this font. I want to play with these colors. I want to play with this, and then usually something eventually will happen. So,
Yeah, and I think stock is like a lot of people don't think of stock as a place that has as like a source of inspiration, but there's so much going on in our collection all the time that you can find things that work within what you're trying to explore
hmm,
or like your given project is. It's actually a great place to start. It's like just a wealth of ideas.
yeah,
I did also throw some images in this library for y'all that are from the Adobe Stock free collection. If you want to just, play around with some images or see what they look like in one of these, there's a lot of 3D renders in here, which is really fun.
oh,
So you could like, wee. That's something I have to look at a lot, actually.
3D renders.
Yeah, that's a lot of my curation is looking at 3D renders these days. So you could like throw one in here and see how it looks in a layout. Let's see if I can. There we go. Drop that into a clipping group.
Nice.
And it's like, okay, that's like really actually a statement that you're making that feels very on trend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those asset libraries have free photos, free templates. If you're someone who works more in like Photoshop or InDesign, there's places for you to play there as well. We've got like Photoshop templates, some really cool posters for InDesign. Yeah, there's just a ton of stuff to play with to start going.
Awesome. And Cody posted the Otherworldly Visions library assets also in there. So if you want to mess around with this stuff, try it out for yourself. Definitely download those. Again, those were made specially for y'all. So check them out.
Yeah, so did we want to talk a little bit? Do we want to go back to that question of how these trends came about?
Yeah, let's start there and kind of see where
Okay.
that takes us. So yeah, maybe take us through. Well, we're on Otherworldly. Let's look at Otherworldly. Like, how did this trend kind of start and come about, and what did you start to see that were like gave you a sense that this is what was happening?
Yeah. Well, so I definitely it's a huge collaborative process. There are people in all different like specialties at Adobe Stock who like combine their research to look at photos, to look at design, to pull signals from social media and film. There was a lot of signals in our. I'm going to pull up our trends from last year so you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, so we have mood boards from like the last couple of years up here.
So probably worth checking out for inspirational stuff. Probably a bunch of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, and the visual trends gear more towards like photography or like themes that you would see in like just to drive visual content.
Hmm.
Design trends are what we're describing go across like editorial design, things like that, and motion trends are in motion, like just more tend to lean more towards like the technical. But this trend, Otherworldly Visions, I think definitely we started seeing when we were doing last year's research, modern Gothic, where you see a lot of these
Yes.
but this has more of like a geometric
Yep.
kind of like punk.
It's not the same, but I can see how the I can see how things from this are being used in the other trend.
Yeah, this and another one was vintage vaporwave. So those two trends, I feel like really that's yeah, really drove this like more
Yes.
cyberpunk aesthetic, but the Otherworldly Visions feels more fantastic. And I think
Yes.
that has a lot to do with like film and what's coming out in the film world. We had Dune, we had what was the oh Lovecraft Country, I think was a big influence. So you can
Yeah.
see like this trend plus modern gothic plus people just getting like more fantastic with it and thinking
And
about
kind of
like
breaking out of
escapism.
like the previous one looks incredibly retro and like fun and kitschy, whereas this stuff
Yeah.
is starting to look less kitschy and almost more serious in its intensity or something like that. Um,
Yeah, it's like definitely less playful. It's still colorful, but it's
yes.
like it's going for adventure more so than like games.
Yeah. Agreed. That's a good
A-
way to put it.
And I saw it a lot in like costuming as well. I feel like costuming, set design, fashion, people were just getting like really creative, really expressive. And interior design, we saw a lot of like maximalism and like avant-garde sort of furniture and decor. And so part of our job is to like take all of these, we just take a bunch of research and we take a bunch of images and videos and we put them into a big digital bucket, and then we start sorting stuff to how we see patterns. And this and then we have to work on like describing what we see and how it's relevant to the artists that we work with.
Nice.
So it's like if you're looking at this trend and say you're someone who works on like textile design and you want to play around with this, like how would you start? Okay, well, there's optical illusions. There's a lot of gradients. A lot of gradients were like a big indicator for where we thought this trend was coming from. Yeah, and you can apply it to what makes sense for you.
Nice. Yeah, and so that's another part of the process, right? So you you and your team start to gather kind of ideas about what's coming and what you think how a trend is going to take shape, and then once it starts to take shape, you commission work from artists and people in the community to make stuff that fits that trend that can then be on Adobe Stock. Do I have that right?
We only do a couple of commissions.
Okay,
Mostly we're curating.
cool.
So the commissions are very, very specific. They've been for like the Creative Cloud workflow. And that's more because we are constantly refreshing that content. So it made sense to align it with the trends by giving those artists like just like overall direction so they could
Cool.
do with it what they will. Um, the the way that we deliver this information to Adobe Stock artists is mostly via the Artist Hub, which is where all this stuff lives, and through like the newsletter and stuff, so people can just start submitting. Uh, if it, when you're submitting work commercially for like a stock platform,
Hmm.
you one of the major ways that you become successful is by regularly uploading content and by making sure that it fits consumer needs. And these like at scale creative direction explorations help us give people a little bit of information about like different styles they could be playing with without feeling like we're being too prescriptive.
Cool. I like that. And so they can kind of take part in this and upload it. Obviously, if a trend also is if it is popular, then knowing that is useful information. If you want to make something that people use, it's very useful information. So
Yeah, and there the themes in here, like so the it's obviously these are a lot of like aesthetic trends that we're exploring, but there are also like subject matter
yeah,
themes that are covered, especially in the like the deep dives. So like this talks a little bit about like the social context for these trends, like where
What
we're
is the inspiration? Yeah.
seeing them.
What's the
Yeah,
scene
exactly.
around these that are making people want to express this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and what's popular in media, what's popular in brands, like what we're seeing in products like physical goods. Um, and so that I think gives a little bit more shape to where this would be applicable to your process.
Awesome.
And there's more examples in here too. I love this deep dive is really fun too because it talks a lot about show like everyone at Adobe is watching like everyone on my team is watching different stuff, but when we talk about like what is popular in media and culture, we start seeing patterns in like why that got so big. Or one of the themes in Otherworldly Visions is this idea of like time travel and how the last couple of years have just felt like they've gone by either really slowly or really fast, and
Or
it's like
both, yeah. At the same
yeah
time.
at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you see people having that collective experience becomes art, becomes media.
Hmm.
And so you can also take inspiration from that. And no matter what you're doing in your process to, get that bread to make money as an artist, there's ways to incorporate like new themes and like be expressive about it.
Yeah, and another thing I like there is like, you know, paying attention to how you like. So if you read this and it's this out of time thing, you don't have to do what everyone else did here, but you can now pay attention to how you feel about time in the last couple years and see if that inspires anything in you. See if there's anything you want to express about time or incorporate any of this stuff that's going to express something that you already feel like is a thing. And that goes for any of these ideas. Like that's another thing is if something's resonating with you, chances are it's probably going to be resonating with other people. And so, pay attention to how like you're responding to this visual stuff and the media around you, not even just here, but just in general. What media and what aesthetics are evoking things for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the deep dive for new naturalism is also a really fun read, because it goes into the history that I was mentioning of like where this sort of progressive utopia
Aesthetic came
comes
from,
from.
yeah,
Yeah.
these concepts and ideas, yeah.
Yeah. And so it can be really fun if you notice within yourself like a specific style or specific themes that you like to explore, and then you see that represented in like new ways. I think it can help people make what they want to while continuously doing it. Like we don't want it to feel like making stuff for stock is anything other than, you know, uh, what you want to be doing to make income.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of history here, um, and it's just fun to read about. I mean, I'm biased because it's part of my job, but I love reading about like design history and
Yeah.
art history. It's just we reference a lot of the origins of these trends that feels very it feels cool to be able to read about art and design history and then like see that in the world around you.
And you don't know what's going to spark your own inspiration. And we've talked
Yeah.
about something similar on the stream many times, which is researching typefaces and where they come from. Very similar, because you'll hear an anecdote or a story, or someone will mention a date, or just something. Someone will mention something in their description of why they made this typeface, and you'll suddenly go, "Oh, I have an idea," and you just don't know where that's going to come from. And so I feel like design history, art history is just a wealth of that. It's interesting by itself, and then you never know what's going to kind of spark. I feel the same way when songwriters I like describe their process and they give you this little weird trick that they do that like I've never heard anywhere else. And they're like, yeah, when I was writing this song, I thought about this. And you go, whoa, I can just borrow that workflow or borrow anyways. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
such a wealth of
We end
stuff
up
here.
doing the same thing. We end up doing the exact same thing with these briefs of
Yeah.
like if you wanted to play around with this, you could start playing with Adobe Capture. You can capture materials there, or you can play with like repeating simple forms.
Yeah.
Like just some ideas if you're interested.
No, it's a bunch of
I
stuff here to try.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, again, all these materials are listed on these homepage, these landing pages for the design trends. We've got another one. We have two other design trends that we've released for this year. We'll be going into heritage craft around the holidays, but you can find all of the visual trends here, and they all have those really fun font packs that will help you get started. And I
Fantastic.
think
Now,
that sort of collaboration is the most fun part for this research.
yeah. Now, I know it's on the down low at the moment, but can you speak to any of the things that you're just seeing in your world right now that you think are going to be popular next year? They don't have to be the trends that you're going to, we haven't published those yet, but do you see anything interesting or cool that people should keep an eye on that you're liking or enjoying or anything like that?
Hmm. I did see there is a lot more of the like web kitsch coming back in a different way than vintage vaporwave did,
Mm.
but there is a lot of like
Early 90s website.
Y2K.
Yeah.
It's like
Late 90s.
specifically
Yep.
Y2K,
Yeah.
and I love it. Like I love Web 1.0, web brutalism. Like I love that stuff.
Me too.
Um, yeah, I'm just like, yeah, the internet is a lot weirder when it's in its early infancy, but specifically like Y2K and rave culture
Okay.
is having like a lot
Nice.
um, right now, which is like again, it feels like it's evolving a little bit. It's going from like that vintage vaporwave to otherworldly visions, and now maybe into like Y2K fashion, and just like very specific things in fashion are coming up that are just so specific to Y2K. It's very funny to watch.
That is funny. There's a I was listening to a podcast and they were mentioning Y2K fashion and I was like, I have no idea what that means. But then I looked at the mood board and I was like, oh, Y2K fashion. Okay, I do know what that is. I just didn't know that that was the term for this thing. Okay, good.
Like extremely specifically, Steve Madden sandals have come back, and I'm like, is
Super
my
Y2K.
eighth grade dance. Yeah, I'm like, that's wild. So definitely seeing a lot of that, which is honestly super cool. The way that I dig around for this stuff is by going to different social media
Mm,
platforms, obviously Behance, also things like not on Adobe, and I start like dragging them into much messier mood boards than the ones that you see here,
mm,
and then like clustering them. And that process is we're just kicking off now. I
nice.
think it's going to be a fun year. We are experimenting a little bit with how we present these trends next year, so it might not be specifically a design trend, but rather like an overall creative trend. I think that will be even more uniting for people. So I think sometimes people get a little intimidated by this idea of a design trend. It's like we're seeing it within design, but also in fashion and photography and things like that. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure people feel like they can access every creative concept that we want to explore.
And I remember someone saying that they were talking about design and they wanted people to realize that they are designers even if they don't think they
Yeah.
are. That when you choose an outfit to wear for the day, that is a design choice. When you choose a t-shirt that you like, that's a design choice. When you choose plates that you want to present to the people who come over to your house, that's a design choice. And so
Yeah.
we think, oh, I'm not a designer. It's like you're designing all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
You just didn't go to school for it maybe, or you haven't done it professionally or something, but it's like, no, no, no. You are a designer. You're making design choices all the time. So, you know, yeah, it's all
Yeah.
good.
And it's all about like the intentionality of how you're placing things.
Yeah.
Uh, so incorporating design trends is like, yeah, it's in your personal life, and it's also in like art and media and stuff. It's you see it everywhere.
Fantastic.
I'm seeing a really good example from Bliss. Stranger Things really helped the 80s make a comeback.
Yes.
Yes. Capital Y, yes.
Yep.
Love to see the Dungeons and Dragons come back. That and Riverdale, like just a lot of like youth media. I love Stranger Things.
Yeah.
A lot
If
of
you saw It Follows when that came out, very much like that. That movie's so
yes.
good.
The lighting from It
Oh,
Follows
so good. The
has
music.
changed. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, a lot of synth. Yeah, that's a part of the trend research that I don't get to get into as much, but I would love to make like playlists for each design trend because I
Yeah.
feel like the synth pop of the last couple of years
It's
would
been good
be
stuff.
huge. Oh, Michelle, yes, Y2K fashion, low-rise jeans have been like the super low-rise jeans were on the runway. Please, Lord help us all.
Yes, we can't. It doesn't mean, hey, just because we spot the trend doesn't mean we want all of it. Okay, so it's we got to take the good with the
You can
bad.
pick.
That's how it goes.
You can
Um,
take the parts you want.
well, we're definitely gonna have you back as new trends come out. It was so good having you for this stream. Thank you, Shay, for putting all that together.
Yeah.
If you like this stream, check us out on Adobe Fonts. Also follow Adobe Stock on Behance as well. All of those mood boards are there. Really good resources. And we'll post this episode and all our previous episodes there, of course. And if you have feedback for Adobe Fonts, go to our user voice and let us know what you want to see from Adobe Fonts in the future. Our product team checks that and pays attention. So we definitely want to hear from you. Thank you all again for joining us. And Shay, once again, thank you for being on the Adobe Fonts show.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.